So I get asked this a lot by my friends, my family, and just people out in public in general. How can you tell the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum? Okay, so there are ways to tell them apart. I am speaking from a caregiver of someone who has meltdowns often, but he is also sick, so he also has tantrums. So this isn't to say that autistic children only have meltdowns. This isn't to say that neurotypical children only have tantrums. It can go across both ways. So this video is to kind of help you as a caregiver be able to tell the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum. Or if you're watching this video and you don't have children, this is a great video to help you maybe see a little bit more empathetically to a child who is throwing a fit in Target or a fit at the fair. Hopefully this video will be able to help you maybe look at it in a different way and see that children just have really big emotions, and sometimes those emotions can get away from them and they just lose control. So let's start with tantrums. So tantrums are very typical of children from birth to death. People have tantrums all the time, it happens. But some things you can look for in a child to tell the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown are these. So number one is going to be that they're seeking attention. You will be able to tell for the most part when they're having a tantrum, they're looking around, they're seeing who's watching, they're seeing who's paying attention to them. Typically with a child with a tantrum, if you walk out of the room, they will follow you. So it's attention based. They are going to throw that tantrum until you give them what they want, or until they realize that you're not going to give in and their screams are useless, basically is what they're gonna do. So the second one is, a lot of the time, if you notice children who have tantrums, when they throw themselves on the ground, they typically will catch themselves with their arms, catch themselves with their hands, or throw themselves onto something soft. Now there are times where children will slip and fall and hurt themselves during a tantrum, but more often than not, they are going to be looking out for their own safety, because again, their tantrum is attention based. If they hurt themselves, they're really going to lose the chance of getting what they want. So they're going to be more than likely not hurting themselves. And the third thing is, more than likely, if you give them what they want, they're going to stop. So if they're crying over, if they're crying over a snack, if they're crying over a toy, if you give them that toy, they're more than likely going to stop crying. So something that can go in both a tantrum and a meltdown is going to be things like kicking, screaming, shouting, biting, spitting. All those things are just things that children and adults use to get their point across. And that's why a tantrum is looking out for their own safety, not the safety of others, because in that moment they're so frustrated, they don't care if they hurt someone else, but they're going to be looking out for themselves. So now we're going to move on to a meltdown. My son has meltdowns probably once a day. He doesn't often do it in public, and I'll get to that in a second. But he does it at home a lot, especially in the evening. Some signs that your child is having a meltdown is, number one, they're not going to care about their own safety. There have been many of times where he has gotten very upset. He's hit his head on the floor, he's hit his head on the concrete walls, he's hit his head on bookshelves. And that is because, for the most part, their bodies are in fight or flight. So whenever they get overwhelmed, whenever they get just overstimulated, their bodies are either like, I have got to fight my way out of here to survive, or I have to run. I just have to run and get away. So what that looks like is you're holding on to them and you're trying to restrain them, because sometimes restraining is necessary. I'll give you an example. We were at the fair the other day, and as soon as we walked into a building, I could sense it being too overstimulated for him, and he ended up having a meltdown shortly after entering the building. And we had to physically hold him in our arms, because if we let go, he would have taken off running, which an overstimulated meltdown 6-year-old is not what you want running through the expo square full of thousands and thousands of people, because we would have never found him. Sometimes restraining them is necessary for their own safety, for the safety of others, and so that they don't run. So in that instance, his body was telling him, I've got to run. I've got to get out of here. I've got to run. And so as we're holding him down, his body is like, okay, I can't run, so I'm gonna fight. And he starts hitting and kicking and slapping and he's, you know, get off me, leave me alone. And he's screaming, and he didn't care that there were people watching. There was no motive for him. He wasn't getting anything if he stopped. He wasn't getting anything if he kept going. There was nothing. He was overstimulated, and the only thing you can do in those moments is to hold on to them and wait for them to calm down. There was even a time where my mom walked over and tried to talk to him and get him to come with her. I'm sure she was thinking, you know, maybe someone else other than his mom or dad could help him kind of snap out of it, and it didn't work. And so that too is a sign that it's a meltdown, because typically most children would love to go with their grandparents over their own parents, but in that moment, using words to him isn't going to help. I mean, they just in one ear out the other, because he's not in a place where his brain can process your words. So the first one is they're not looking out for their own safety. Their body is legitimately trying to survive. In their own minds, they're trying to survive, and they'll do anything necessary to survive. That means hurting themselves. Number two is their actions are driven by a reaction to something. So a lot of the things that we really look for first are they tired? Are they hungry? Are they cold? Are they hot? Are they thirsty? Those things in children who have autism or children who have sensory issues, those things are just ticking time bombs. You really need to keep them full, keep them comfortable, or else they're going to lose it. So the third thing is their actions are not driven by an audience. So they're going to have a meltdown whether you are sitting there restraining them, watching them, whether they're in an expo square full of thousands of people, or whether they're in their bedroom and you turn around and walk out and leave them there. Because in that moment, again, their brain is not processing what other people are doing. They're only trying to survive in that moment. So if my son's having a meltdown and he starts throwing things, he starts just becoming really unruly, and my husband is not here to help me, I will just walk out and shut the door and tell him, you know, calm down. Which isn't always the best thing to do, because sometimes they do need someone else to help them kind of calm down. But if you feel that you are in danger because of your child's actions, it's best to just walk away, give them some space. You take a breath, they might take a breath, and then you come back into the room and try to resolve what's going on. More often than not, my child is hungry or tired, and that is what will trigger a meltdown 97% of the time. So the last thing, there is no goal. You don't benefit from having a meltdown. You don't benefit from having a meltdown. They get nothing out of it other than they leave feeling very exhausted and very tired. And that's pretty much how you know that they are having a meltdown, is when they're done, and they get up and they keep doing what they were doing. They gained nothing from it. Now there are times where your child can start out as a tantrum and it leads into a meltdown, and that is because of emotional regulation. They're not able to, once they get so upset and so frustrated, mind switches over to that fight or flight and they begin a meltdown. So it is possible for your child to want a toy at the store and you tell them no and they start having a little fit, and then before you know it, it can quickly change into a meltdown. And those, again, you just kind of have to ride out. You just kind of have to keep everybody safe, keep them safe, keep yourself safe, and wait for them to stop having a meltdown. Another thing that I kind of want to touch in this video is something called like a delayed meltdown. And so I've seen this talked about several times, so I'm going to talk about it, how I've seen it. So imagine that you have a Pepsi bottle, Coke bottle, whatever kind of soda you like. So you're going throughout your day and things like, you know, I'll talk from a kid's perspective. Get to school, your teacher is not there and you have a substitute teacher, so you're gonna shake up your bottle. Get to lunch, there's so many smells, there's so many sounds, there's so many things happening, so you shake up your bottle. You go out to recess, it's really hot and you start sweating and you're running and you're tired, so you shake up your bottle. You go to class, your favorite seat in class is taken, so you have to sit somewhere else, you shake your bottle. Your friend goes home from school sick, that's your friend that you do all your things with, you shake your bottle. So whenever you get home, your mom says, come on, let's sit down and do homework, and it's like done. It's like you open that bottle and it just sprays out everywhere. And that's because you've irritated that and you've shaken that bottle all day long, that even the simplest of questions like, do you need to go to the bathroom? What kind of snack do you want? Why don't you switch into your pajamas? Those kinds of things can trigger them and they just go into a full-blown meltdown. And you're sitting there like, I don't understand what's happening right now. Like, why are they doing this? And it's because they were agitated all day and they wait till they get home because that's their safe place. You as their mom, or you as their dad, or you as their caregiver are their safe place. So they hold it in all day and then they get home to you and it's just like, and they just explode. Before I end this video, I'm going to leave you with a couple of tips. My first tip is, this is our own personal tip, is we do not punish for things that happen during a meltdown. We're not going to get him in trouble for hitting or kicking or throwing. Typically, he will get natural consequences because he has broken something that he loves dearly. That has happened and he feels very upset about it. But you have to remember, if you are in a room with a bear, you're going to do anything possible to survive. That is your brain telling you you must survive. You have to survive. And that's how their brains are during a meltdown, is they are fight or flights. They have to survive. They're just thinking about surviving. So we don't punish for things that happen during a meltdown. Things that happen during a tantrum do get punished. You do get in trouble for them, but meltdowns, we don't punish. The last tip is you just have to learn to ignore other people. Because if it's your child that's having a meltdown, other people are going to be like, what's that kid doing? Or like, why is he screaming? Why doesn't that mama pick him up and spank him? That's what I hear a lot. What if you would just spank him, he wouldn't have this problem. And spanking doesn't help. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. It's pointless, especially in that moment. You're wasting your time. Honestly, that's what's happening. So you really just have to get on the floor with them, be face to face with them, show them that you're here, you're engaged, you're listening, have them tell you what they need. Most of the time they can't, they just scream, and that's fine. You're sitting there showing them. You're gonna wait until they come out of their own brain. So you just have to learn to ignore other people, and that means family members, that means friends, that means anyone who comes near you to make comments, because they will. Just ignore people because they're ignorant. They haven't been taught differently. They think spanking is the only way to solve anything, and that's just simply not true. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you don't have children, I hope that it kind of gives you a glimpse into someone's mind and someone's life whenever you see a child having a meltdown, because the mom is trying to help their child cope with their surroundings, and sometimes it's really messy and loud and violent, but there are kids, and so we do what we have to do to help them figure out how to cope with life. So I hope this was helpful to you. Let me know down below if you have a child who has meltdowns, if you deal with them differently, if you have any tips of how to deal with them. That would be great. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!